Hi and welcome to the Applying for Grants series. So in the last series of videos that I created, we looked at all the options for setting up a not-for-profit organisation in the UK. Now, regardless of which structure you choose, at some point you're going to be considering fundraising, you're going to be looking at where you can generate income for your organisation. And the majority of what I do in terms of the workshops and mentoring people who are setting up and running not-for-profit organisations is around fundraising. It's around how to secure funding and how to get funding to sustain your organisation to keep going. So as I go through these videos, there's space in the workbook for you to make your own notes, and all the links to the websites that I refer to are in that workbook as well. So how do you begin to find out about the funders that might be interested in what your organisation delivers? Well, if you're starting from scratch, then the online funding databases are a really great place to start. So I've highlighted a short list of 5 funding databases that I think are worth having a look at. So I'm going to run through those with you now. Let's move over to my screen. Okay, so the first funding database that I always direct people to is My Funding Central. Now, until a couple of years ago, this website used to be owned by NCVO, the National Council for Voluntary Organisations. It's since been privatised and taken over by this company, iDocs. Now, it's still essentially the same resource, but there's some slightly different rules around who can access it for free. So I'll just show you quickly to subscribe. If you already have a charity number, you can go through this option. And if, for example, you're a different type of not-for-profit organisation, such as a CIC, you can go through this option. You might have if you're a CIC, you'll have a company number. If you're not, you can provide other details to prove that you're a not-for-profit organisation within a certain range of annual income. I'll just show you quickly about the subscription fees. So if you're a new organisation or fairly small, so your annual turnover is up to £30,000, then you can get a free account here. And that's really important to note, because I think for most of the people watching this, most of the people that I support are generally at the startup or the early stages of their organisation. So it's really worth knowing which of these databases you can access for free, and this is a really good one for that. Once you get over the £30,000 per year threshold, the subscription fee is £50 per year, and then it goes up from there. So that's just something to be aware of. So what they do on the main page, this is quite helpful actually, they list some of the newer funds that have been added to the website, and this one is very helpful. So the upcoming deadlines, I think this is great that they put this here. So any funders that have deadlines coming up, you can if any of those are of interest, you can prioritise those. But the main thing that I use it for, and the main thing that I recommend this website for, is the search facility. So if we click on search now, and we're just going to go through and do an example of a search here. So select your organisation type, and I'm going to put community interest company because that's what mine is, but of course you can choose whatever is relevant to you. Select areas of work, and these are drop down lists as well. I would probably put community, carrying out community projects. I might put education and training, but as you can see, there's everything here from supporting families, supporting parents and children, heritage and the arts, medical research, regeneration, social relief, sport and recreation. Just go through them and try and tick a maximum of 5, but even just ticking 2 or 3 that are the most relevant to you will get you some good results. Eligible expenditure. So here it's asking you, what do you want to spend the grant on? What are you looking for funding for? So is it for your capital costs like buildings, or is it for paying your staff and your bills? So I'm going to put paying staff and venue hire for mine. So I'm going to tick those too. Geographical scope. So this is one that have a think about this, because again, if you're very new to fundraising, I would always say start off just ticking local and then build up from there. European funding is something that you want to look at much further down the line, really. National funders can be really good if they're specialist in supporting the type of thing that you deliver, but always remember that if a funder is local, there's going to be less competition for their funds. If they're regional, there's going to be slightly more. If they're national, there's going to be a lot more competition. So for example, if I was doing a search here, I would probably, as a first attempt, tick local and regional. I always just tick the ones that are currently open for application. And here, if you're looking for a particular funder, one you've heard of, one you want to find out more about, you can type that in there. The same applies here for the search terms that you're looking for, but I'm going to leave those blank for now. So I'll click search and see what it comes back with. Really, one of the reasons I wanted to give an example of this is because more often than not it'll come back with quite a number of options. So you'll see here 253 funds have been found. Well, it's very unlikely that any of us have time to look through 253 funds, let alone apply to 253 funders. So there's a couple of things that you can do to filter this down. The first thing that I'm going to do is remove regional there, so we're just going to look at local funds. And then secondly, I'm going to check grant here under funding type, so we're not interested in looking at any loan funding at this stage. So I'll see what difference that makes to the numbers. So this has reduced it to 232 funds, but that's still quite a lot to go through. And also what I've noticed is that even though I've put in the details of my organisation and where I'm based, it's still showing me local funds from all different areas of the UK rather than just the ones near to where I'm based. So if I go back to my initial search criteria and add in a search phrase here, I'm just going to try putting Yorkshire in there. So here we've got 15 funds now, so that's a much easier number to work with. So I'm going to go through this list and just tick the ones that, just as an example, a few that I might be interested in. I found the best way to use this is to filter them down by selecting the ones that you're interested in, and then you can either save these into your saved items within your Funding Central account, or you can download them as a document, which I prefer to do. So that way you've just got it to keep, you can print it out and you can scroll through much more detail about all of those funders on your shortlist. Now the next website I'm going to have a look at here is Grants Online. They list the latest funding news. There's quite a lot of information just on their website here, so even without paying for a subscription you can get quite a lot of information on things that are going on. The newsletter is really good, definitely worth subscribing to, and that's free. But if we look at the subscription costs to Grants Online, you can see that the cost is £17 plus VAT per month, and that's just for a single user. So it's likely that you're not at the stage of wanting to pay that much just for a single subscription to a database. The next website I'm looking at is Get Grants, and I'm going to start by looking at their funding finder. So you can see on this one, what I like about this website is that you can search by topic. So here I could choose whatever I'm working on at the moment, so I could choose, for example, arts and heritage, and it will give me a list of funders that are known to support arts and heritage type projects. So I quite like how really simple and clean this website is. Now I just looked at their funding finder there, but you can also see they've got other free resources, training and a newsletter as well, so just worth having a look around their website as well. And then Funds Online. First thing to say about Funds Online is that it's owned by DSC, which is the Directory of Social Change. There's not much that DSC do for free, but if we look at the cost of the subscription here, you will quickly see why it's probably not one for the beginning of your journey in setting up an organisation. It starts at £474 including VAT, so it's a fairly significant amount to be paying for a subscription when a lot of this information is on the other websites that we've had a look at for free. And if I try and do a search here, for example, if I just do a quick search, what it actually does is tell me how many results it's found, but I can't access any of that information until I've paid for a subscription. And then another one I like is the Charity Excellence Framework. They also have a free funding finder, which is worth having a go at. So if I go through the process of registering for an account here, it asked me some information about my organisation to help it match what I'm looking for, and then you can use the funding finder to search for grants that might be a good match. So again, you just filter down the total number of grants by the area that you're working in, the type of work that you're doing, and the amount that you're looking for. So if, for example, I was looking for a grant up to £10,000 in that area, it's brought back 19 entries here. It's a fairly easy to use website. It's free to sign up for an account, so that's one that is definitely worth doing. It's also worth asking whether your local authority has any access to a funding database as well. For example, my council in Kirklees has access to iDocs, and they have their own version of Funding Central that is accessible to anyone with a Kirklees postcode, regardless of the turnover of their organisation. So it's worth checking with your local authority, as well as most areas have a voluntary service council which supports the voluntary and community sector, and they quite often have access to resources as well, or they'll have a subscription to some paid services which they can access on your behalf. So it's always worth asking those questions as well if you're at the start of your journey and you don't have the funds to kind of pay for all these subscriptions. So using these resources, start your research and see if you can come up with, first of all, a long list of potential funders for your organisation, and then we'll work on prioritising them a little bit later on.